Zeppelin or Zeppelin, and there's a beam coming from it, and there's a city underneath, and then you know what happens. How to reset a world, how to reset a society or a civilization. Let's just see options and possibilities, and the pictures and the photos speak for themselves, especially when you have big old buildings with huge stone and the dome and the towers and the electromagnetic energy, and then you have a beam coming from a Zeppelin. So you see how not everything has to be a UFO. The German UFOs, right? And we also have the UFOs from the Mahabharata from India, or the so-called Indian civilization, which is not what it was before. And yeah, you can have UFOs, or you can have any type of objects or flying machines, but you can also have Zeppelins. And the thing with Zeppelin is very important because there's movies and there's articles about Zeppelins showing them in this destructive mode, especially in the first years of the 20th century, and especially before the First World War and during the First World War. And all of a sudden Zeppelins disappear and we have a Second World War with different technology. But I guess the photos speak for themselves. All of these photos are from 1905 to 1918, more or less. So yeah, at the end of the day, this is like a part of history that exists, but it's in the shadows of the Second World War, because it's way before that, right? So yeah, the concept is there, the idea is there. We have movies, even though you can actually count the movies about this type of technology and in this way on your fingers, on your hands. There's like a Japanese animation with vampires that touches upon this a bit. I think it's Helsing. And in movies format, not too many, because everything is so focused on the Second World War and other types of things. So this thing from the newspaper, it's from January 22nd, 1915. You can still see, and we have things with Germany and England. So even before, even like 20 years and 30 years before the Second World War, we had this type of things going on in the world. So you can imagine if this technology comes from the 1800s, and the skies of the 1800s and the 1700s were full of these Zeppelins or Zeppelins using that awesome technology, which was then banned in the 20th century, and they had lasers and beams coming out. And especially because these Zeppelins we see in the 20th century are quite primitive compared to what we can see in the movies when they present them with this steampunk type of ideology. Anyway, a bit of a black and white scene on the sky with the lights and you may imagine like the emotions and the feelings you must have in your heart and in your soul when you see the skies full of these machines with laser beams coming out of them, and you're in the middle of the city. I think Attack on Titan, Shingeki no Kyojin in Japanese, that anime about titans and giants, they do touch on this, especially in the last season. So yeah, and this is a photo of San Francisco, right? Look at San Francisco. Now imagine the Zeppelins on the sky with laser beam, which can be the same as directed energy from those Zeppelins on specific parcels of the land, creating this, I'm just saying, the outcome, when you have a laser beam and you burn something like stone or rock, and you have these diagonal cuts in the stone. Now we have the War of the Worlds. So what if the War of the Worlds, which is in 1895, we have this Anglo-Martian thing, and I'm not saying that this technology doesn't exist, but how about you put the same technology with Zeppelins and laser beams, and then you have the outcome of the so-called fires. I showed you a huge list of fires in the States and other parts of the world every single year in the 1800s, fire after fire, and then you have the repopulation. In the case of Chicago, which I've put these two pictures here like that, it says, supposed cause of the Chicago fire, Mrs. O'Leary and her cow. And the cow kicks the lamp, and the straws burn, and then the whole city of rock and granite, and big huge buildings of tons of rock burns. Well, and you see the picture on the right, and then you see the Zeppelins or the UFOs with laser beams with directed energy. So what's the cause of fires? I'm just saying, we have the War of the Worlds by Wells with these machines, alien type of things. That's a good concept. But what if that concept is taken from the Zeppelins and not the actual things? Which I mean, it would be amazing to have this technology in the first place. I guess it actually exists. But no, I guess something like the technology of the reset, and behind you have like a dome building, and then you put the Zeppelins or the UFOs in place with beams, and all of a sudden everything makes sense. I wanted to finish the video with speaking about Zeppelins only, but I cannot speak only about what happens in the skies of the world. Also important to speak about what happens on the oceans and the water. The Great White Fleet Tour. In the first 10 years of the 20th century, before the First World War, we had this, of course, these ships. This is a bird's eye view. Unfortunately, we don't have any photos. We just have drawings. This is in 1908, and then we have this one around the world. It says like the greatest fleet around the world, and the flags. And they go around the world. Of course, the world is, well, this is the map we have, but if you go to Vibes of Cosmos, you understand a bit better in a way. So not a globe. And then we have this. This is like the closest thing we do get in terms of an illustration to kind of like, this is in Japan, has Mount Fuji behind, to understand the magnificence of this white fleet from America, from the United States. Now, it says return of the American battleship fleet, so battleship fleet from peace voyage. Even the title marks peace voyage around the world. And the article is from February 22nd, 1909. That's pretty much 5 years before, 5-6 years before the First World War. What's the purpose of this peace voyage? And if you have like a peace voyage, why do you have a First World War? A massive war, the biggest war ever in those days. In history, they say, just after the peace voyage. So what was the purpose of this? What was the purpose of the Zeppelins? Because you can use them as battle, and the purpose of the Great White Fleet. I like the name, the White Fleet. Peace voyage. Number of miles covered, 42,000. Over 42,000. Makes sense, right? So this fleet, they went on the curvature of the curved water spinning in space with 1,000 miles per hour, or is it something else? Remember the true map of the world and the display of the continents on the Vibes of Cosmos maps. Yeah. So independently, if you take the skies. I think this is amazing. This picture here, that building, which is an example of the white buildings, and the thing with the fleet on the oceans, giving a peace voyage. Well, this peace voyage came in the beginning of the 20th century, and the fires. Let's go to a picture with the fires. The fires, like the Chicago fire, which was one of the biggest fires, but then every city in the States, and not just the States, but other parts of the world, had big, massive fires. And all the cities were made of rock and granite stone. And all of them had these issues across the 19th century. And then you see these photos of the White Fleet, which, remember, the White Fleet, because they're battleships, they can also bombard the coast, but especially the flying objects, right? Be it UFO or Zeppelins. I'm not trying to give any type of idea. I don't mind if I'm not trying to convince anyone. I'm just trying to understand the small bits of information that we have in these photos or illustrations that allow us to go a bit beyond our limitations and understand what might have happened and why the world changed so quickly in those 50 years from 1850 to 1900, and then from 1900 to 1945. So you can say 100 years of massive changes from 1850 to 1945. So I hope you enjoyed and things make more sense. And remember, next time when you see this result in a city, it reminds me of